Hello, my friends. How are you? So, we are live, I hope. And I am speaking to you still from the Seduction of Spirit course in Florida. We are in Amelia Island in Florida. And this is a week-long course. Some of you have been to it. You've participated in these courses, I'm sure some of you, because we've been doing them over 20 years. And we have a wonderful time. And I'm about to go in a short while to do my session. And I thought before I go, I'd share some ideas on how to modulate your body in the direction of perfect health. And I know that the title I've chosen just now is a little tantalizing when I say that perfect health is a blissful body. A lot of people criticize me for saying these things. You know, when I say there's a place inside you that is perfectly healthy, that there is a place inside you that never dies, that there's a place inside you that never experiences distress. Then a lot of people get upset because they think that's junk. What's he talking about? All this gobbledygook. And so I thought I should explain what I mean when I say perfect health is a blissful body. And I must say, I do not mean it metaphorically. I mean it literally. In fact, the physical body itself is a metaphor and not our real body, as I've explained so many times in these conversations, that our real body is not physical. It is the body of bliss. So now let's let's examine this notion a little bit. And I'm using a model. The model is the Ayurvedic model. So when you look at the human body or any biological organism for that matter, through the lens of Ayurveda, a particular map of what we call reality, and that reality includes our physical body. Then in Ayurveda, the body is divided into many koshas. Ayurveda, by the way, is the science of life, comes from Vedanta, the Eastern wisdom tradition of Vedanta, of non-duality. That's what Vedanta is. So now, let's, can everyone hear me and see me clearly? I just want to make sure. Can everyone hear me and see me clearly? Because all your comments are coming across the screen and I can't see myself that clearly, which doesn't matter because I don't believe in the physical body anyway. So here we are in Ayurveda. What about the screen? Okay, so everyone can see and hear me clearly. Okay, then I won't worry about it. I'll just keep going. So in Ayurveda, the body is divided into several koshas. The word kosha in Sanskrit means layers. Think of an onion and think of all the layers that the onion has. You know, the outermost skin of the onion, you peel that, there's another layer, there's another layer. Russian dolls is also an example. So in this particular model of reality, the outermost layer of the body, the skin, and what you see right now, that layer of the body is called Annamma Kosha and Pranamma Kosha. So Anna means food, that sheath of the body, that layer of the body that is derived from food, Annamaya, full of recycled food, And then Annamma Kosha. Prana is, of course, the energy that is constantly being used for everything, for every experience, eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, imagination, insight, creativity, perceptual activity, motor activity, bowel activity, evacuation of waste from the body. Everything that we can call an experience is causing the recycling of the body. And that experience is driven by prana, the energy of the cosmos. Okay, the recycling of your body is the recycling of the cosmos through prana. And in Ayurveda, there are many kinds of prana, but we're not going to go into that. So that's the outermost layer. And then there is another layer called the subtle body. And this has three components to it: Manomaya Kosha, the mind, and then Gyanmaya Kosha, the intellect, and Ahankar, Mano Buddhi Ahankar in Sanskrit. So mind, intellect, and ego, which is our self-image, which is the subtle body, which you can't see, okay? It is non-local, but you can experience it. The other one you can see, this one. So mind, intellect, and ego. And this is the subtle body, and then you go a little bit beyond that to the innermost layer, and it's called Anandamaya Kosha. Ananda means bliss. And this is the body of bliss, and it too has several layers. Jivatma, Jivatman means your personal soul, conscious agent that you are. And then beyond that is Atman, without the conditioned mind or even the propensity of the conditioned mind. And beyond that is Brahman, the universal consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, the fundamental ground of all existence. That's the third set of koshas. Anandamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. It's bliss, and it contains Jivatman, Atman, Brahman. Okay, from local to completely non-local, from localized in space-time to unbounded in space-time. The real body of bliss. Now, of course, this understanding of the body takes a bit of time and experience and thinking, and it evolves both as an understanding and as an experience. So when I went to medical school, the first lesson was anatomy, and so there the body was seen as a noun, as a frozen anatomical structure. Now that anatomy is a useful knowledge for physicians, but it also is particularly useful for surgeons, because if the surgeons didn't treat the body as a physical anatomical object or even a frozen anatomical sculpture, it wouldn't be possible to do surgery. So surgery is only possible when you assume this model. The body is anatomical and it is relatively fixed in space and time. Okay, then you can fix it. You can use your surgical tools to cut, to realign, to take out, all of that. So that's the first lesson in medical school. The second lesson in medical school is physiology. This thing that we call the body is not a noun, it's a verb, and it's constantly in dynamic exchange with the elements and forces of the universe. Through those processes: eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, thought, feeling, emotion, desire, etc. So it's a changing process, but yet in that changing process that we call the body, there is a constancy of the milieu interior, as Claude Bernard, the great physiologist, said. a constancy of the milieu interior, and we now call that homeostasis, self-regulation, a dynamic non-change within the midst of change. See, a body seemingly looks non-changing, even though we know it's changing over time. Okay, recycling and changing, evolving. But when you look at it at a more fundamental level, even this change is a dynamic non-change. So everything stays within a certain range. Blood sugar, hormones, electrolytes, inflammatory markers, heart rate, breathing, all stays within a certain range, even though it's constantly changing. It's constantly pulsing, but also constantly recycling. So physiology replaces anatomy with function. And the ideal state, of course, is perfect self-regulation. And the body is built with feedback loops, negative and positive feedback loops. So if you're in a cold environment, the body knows how to self-regulate and keep it at body temperature, 98.4 degrees, plus minus a little bit here and there. If you eat a meal, your blood sugar will go up, but then it'll bounce back to within the normal range, which is homeostasis. And everything is like that, dynamic, non-change, in the midst of change. That's a healthy body, okay, physiology. And then, in medical school, we went deeper. We learned something called biochemistry. We realized that all these physiological processes were driven by chemical interactions. And chemical interactions in a biological organism are called biochemistry. So, we can now identify these molecules, biomolecules. I've mentioned molecules of emotion such as serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, opiates, anandamide, molecules of distress, too much cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cytokines, etc. So now we are getting to a more fundamental level, molecular biology, which is basically biochemistry. And of course, biochemistry is chemistry, and chemistry is physics. And today there is also a lot of insight into what we call biophysics. And when I was in medical school, by the way, we did have a department of biophysics at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and we had a professor of biophysics, and it was a great understanding of the human body at an even more fundamental level than biochemistry. So when you look at the body as through a model called biophysics, then the body is principally force fields, atoms, and particles, and charges. Electromagnetic fields is what holds the body together. So, of course, what holds the body to the ground is gravity. But what holds the body together is mostly electromagnetic activity or electromagnetic fields, which are part of a universal electromagnetic field that permeates all of space-time. In fact, our Earth is also a magnet in a sense. The electromagnetic field of the Earth, the North Pole and the South Pole, are basically creating an electromagnetic field, and it is thought that there's molten iron in the core of the Earth, and as the Earth rotates and orbits around the Sun, this rotation of the magnet that we call the Earth, the iron core right in the middle of the Earth, creates the electromagnetic field, which is part of the elements and forces of the universe. At this level, by the way, it's very obvious that your body is composed of force fields, and that every interaction with the physical world is an interaction between force fields, electromagnetic force fields. So when you touch an object, like I'm touching the table or this cup, you don't actually touch the cup. Electromagnetic force fields interact with electromagnetic force fields, and there is a resistance between them that is experienced as solidity, particularly because you don't see anything in between those force fields. And so the space between this and this is actually a charged force field, but even when I touch it, electrons bump into electrons, so I actually never touch anything. Even when you're sitting, you're floating a little bit, teeny weeny bit, levitating over the ground, and your chair is, you are floating a little bit above the ground, above the chair, and the chair is floating a little bit above the ground, and everything is an object is actually floating a little bit above the earth. Resistance of force fields creates the experience of solidity, especially in the absence of visual colors. Okay, so when you sense something, that's all that's happening. Electrons bumping into electrons. Fascinating. Now we see that the body is one with the universe, okay, at every level. But now go beyond that, and you see that these force fields are actually particles, and the particles have a dual nature. They are both physical particles in that they have units of mass and energy when they are measured, but prior to measurement, particles exist as waves, and they exist as waves of probability in something called Hilbert space, mathematical space, which has infinite dimensions or zero dimensions. You can say that the most fundamental level of existence is basically beyond the force fields. It's probability waves, the intersection of probability waves in infinite space. And so now you're getting to a level where the body is not material at all, not even in terms of electromagnetic force fields. It is just probability fields in infinite non-local space, and totally one with everything that exists. So at this level, the body is made of nothing, and we're all levitating around, interacting as electromagnetic force fields with other electromagnetic force fields. Okay, but this is a Western description based on the model that we call the physicalist model, and it's a very good model. Remember, the physicalist model is extremely useful for navigating everyday experience. But actually now look at this from a consciousness perspective, okay? At the level of the ground of all existence, the body is totally formless, okay? And being totally formless and not fluctuating in the state of pure potentiality, it is in a state of eternal bliss. And it is in a state of eternal bliss. It's also beyond birth and death. Once the fluctuations start, so in deep sleep, for example, the body is the body of bliss because there's no fluctuation in consciousness. Then dream states, depending on the kind of dream, it can be distressful or happy. But now the fluctuations of consciousness are giving us an experience that has evolved from nothing to something, even though it's ephemeral and vague and evanescent and dreamlike and amorphous. It's there. So now the body of bliss is fluctuating as the dream body and the Annamma Kosha and the Buddhimaya Kosha, but all kind of blissfully fluctuating depending on the quality of the dream. And then finally, there's the waking state in which you experience the physical world And in the waking state, we see all kinds of problems, don't we? We see wars and terrorism and stress and selfishness and cyber hacking and atomic bombs and oh God. And we said, this is what we have projected collectively in the matrix of conscious agents. And so it is. We have to accept it, that the world is our projection. And it's a projection of both your personal body, of subtle body, and also the collective subtle body, because the collective subtle body is projecting the universe that we interpret every day. The experience, the perceptual experience of the universe also needs an interpretation. So behind me there's something called green. It has a shape, it has a color, it has a form. That's an appearance in consciousness, a fluctuating appearance in consciousness. I reify, congeal it, and we call it a tree or a plant or a curtain or whatever. But that's how consciousness is conceiving and constructing the physical world, including your physical body. Okay, now I started by saying that perfect health is a state of a blissful body. Your body is blissful physically, it shows some evidence. Your face is happy, your eyes are clear, you look directly in the eye at people, your tongue is moist and pink. The tone of your voice is happy and friendly. Your gestures are open, you're not tight, and your body language reflects the happiness, the bliss of being. And how do we get there? Well, we get there through daily and seasonal routines, which are very much a part of Ayurveda. But right now I can tell you, there's a secret to experiencing the body of bliss. One is, of course, blissful sleep, right? When we have slept very well, even though we have no memory of experience, we have a memory of bliss. And when we wake up in the morning, we feel blissful and rested. So sleep. And then the second is deep meditation that takes you to the source, transcends beyond thought to the source, which is the body of bliss. The body of bliss. And in that body of bliss is the projection. Then everything changes. Your physical body changes because you have dipped into the ocean of bliss. Every time you dip into the ocean of bliss through transcendence. And then as the physical body emanates bliss, then the perceptual activity of that body looks at a world with joy. And then the world appears joyful. So everything starts to change. And if enough people have that experience, then the whole world shifts. The whole world can shift into the state of lightness of being and bliss. Transcendence is the key. But transcendence to the source. But there's another key, and that is to practice body awareness, practice vipassana. And always, once in a while, do a body scan and have the intention that when you close your eyes, you actually don't have any experience of the body at all. That's a very healthy body. When you close your eyes, no experience of the body at all. No sensations. Total emptiness, joy, and bliss. And cultivate that through yoga nidra, through yoga, through vipassana, through mindful awareness, through transcendence, through being aware of the body as a process in blissful being. That is the key. Now, of course, there are other keys which we have mentioned so many times. How do you basically take care of the everyday processes that govern the recycling of the physical body, which are eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, sensory experience, and mental and emotional activity. So each of these is important in regulating the body. Those are details. Fundamentally though, your body is, hi Ramanand Dikshit, he says, Nirvikalp Samadhi. Nirvikalp, undisturbed. Kalp also means time, timeless, being, projecting as the body of bliss. And then, by the way, the world changes and everything changes because there's this clarity, there is alertness, there is stillness, and there is dynamism at the same time. Stillness, dynamism, perfect self-regulation, the body of bliss. Perfect health is a blissful body, a blissful world, a blissful mind, blissful emotions. One word for it, ultimate love. Okay, my friends, I am going to get ready and go to the next session at the course. By the way, at this moment, there's a Perfect Health 21-day meditation, which just started a couple of days ago. And you can join it if you go to Chopra Center Meditation.com. So that's right, the URL is chopracentermeditation.com. 21-day meditation on perfect health. So very timely that I did this. Chopracentermeditation.com. The 21-day experience is free of charge. There's no cost to it. All you have to do is log on. Give me your feedback on all these, and should I continue to do these daily posts. Your feedback is very important to me, and we'll continue our exploration with your feedback, both positive and negative. It means that you care enough to be involved, and that's all that matters. Have a blissful day with a blissful body, and stay in perfect health.